guys, Magic here. Coming back to talk to you about the stages of recovery. I know this is a serious topic, but we are in October right now. Halloween is tomorrow, so I feel like dressing up even for a serious conversation. And I got shotgun with me today, bud. Alright, so let's just get into it. I told you, stage 1 was identifying despair. Stage 2 is educating yourself. And stage 3 is where you go through the awakening, which is a healing process, or it's where you realize healing is possible anyway. All of this is part of the healing process. But stage 4 is where we start to implement boundaries, which sounds really hard because I'm not the best at that. There's 2 types of ways to do this. One way is through detached contact or no contact. You need to have enough distance between you and the abuser so you can detox from the trauma bonding and from the abuse and start to look forward to your recovery. This stage has to be individually driven because it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. You need to be able to set boundaries that you can follow through on, that you're serious about. And sometimes you may waver. You may start to question if maybe you're just overreacting. Sometimes the relationship for you to get better has to end. Sometimes you have to move on. Sometimes you have to let them go no matter how much you love them or how much it hurts. Sometimes what's best for you is to just let them go. But sometimes we can get stuck in this because we don't want to feel like we're overreacting. We don't want to hurt them. We don't want to feel like we're the bad guy. We don't want to feel wrong. And so sometimes setting boundaries can make us feel like we're being selfish because that's what we're trained to believe, but it's not selfish. It's what helps protect the quality of our relationships, and but it can still feel paralyzing. You can still feel stuck. That's why counseling sometimes is really helpful, or having a support group or someone else who knows what you're going through to just talk to. Everyone needs to come up with their own individual plan and boundaries that work for them, because not everyone's situation is the same. Not everything will work the same for every person. Remember, this is a healing process. It's not one size fits all. There's so many competing factors, so many different things. I mean, if you have kids with this person, that can be a factor. Because then you might have to have contact with them because of the kids. You might have joint custody. You might be trying to co-parent. You might still be in a marriage with them. It could be, and what's best for you may not be what's best for your children, and what's best for them may not be what's best for you either. And just like with your career, what's good for your career may not be good for your well-being, and vice versa as well. And what could be good for your spiritual growth may not be good for where you're at in your church environment, or your church environment may not be good for your spiritual growth. You have to reach a point where you're not willing to take this anymore. It's like no more. Like when Dave Ramsey talks about finances, he's like, you have to get to that point where you're like, I'm not doing this anymore, so that way you'll become intense on it. You need to be willing to walk away if they're not willing to respect your boundaries. You need to feel this power shift, because that's what it is. Setting boundaries is a power shift. And they may back down for a little while. They may even play nice, because this gains them something. Because, for instance, they may not want to lose you. If it's like your boss, for instance, they're not going to want to, if you're making them look good, if you're doing things for them, they're not going to want you to leave. So they may play by the rules for a little bit. And if you're in a marriage, they may not want to be alone. They may not want to start over. So they may choose to play nice for a little while, but bad days will always come back. And so this is why you need to have healthy boundaries that you will stay firm in. And again, one size will not fit all people. There are low-level narcissists which may be able to do detached contact with, but if you're dealing with a high-level one that might be sociopathic or psychotic, no contact may be best. But again, sometimes that's not a choice, and what's best for one person may not be best for another. So that's up to you individually to decide. My most recent example of something like this is I have this person that I know. And what you can do is if you're trying to figure out how this person affects you. For me, we'll use this person that I know. How does my relationship with the toxic person affect my work? For me, at work, they make me procrastinate. They make me feel obligated to fix their crises instead of doing what I should be doing. They cause me to have more work than I should have. They distract. They cause drama at my job, which makes it harder for me to focus. Oh no, shotgun. How does my relationship with the toxic person affect my home life? It has caused turmoil in my home with my kids because they've lied to my children, broken promises to them. And number one house rule in my life, in my house, is we do not lie and we do not break promises. How does my relationship with this toxic person affect my ability to volunteer? Don't have an example for that. How does my relationship with this toxic person affect my school? How does my relationship with this toxic person affect my physical health? For me, it just causes me extra stress, which causes all sorts of things to act up in my body. How does my relationship with this toxic person affect my spiritual growth? I think it makes me question myself and feel like a bad person for trying to change or trying to grow in that area, because they'll often attack me for trying to grow, How does my relationship with the toxic person affect my friendships? It's been impacting my friendships lately because they've been trying to turn other people on me recently. How does my relationship with this toxic person affect my parenting? Again, issues with my kids. How does my relationship with this toxic person affect my romantic relationships? They don't really impact my romantic relationships other than trying to attack the person that I'm trying to be with because they want me to be with them. Or making me feel guilty for trying to be with somebody else that isn't them. Or trying to make me act like we are in a relationship when we're not, because they want us to be and they don't want me having other options. How does my relationship with this toxic person affect my hobbies? Don't really have an example for that one because I don't really got time for hobbies anyway. Once you begin to realize that this person is wrecking your life and destroying so many different areas of your life, becomes a little bit easier for you to want to set boundaries, but it can still feel paralyzing. You need to be able to set boundaries that you will be able to maintain. That's really important, because if you can't maintain the boundary, then the abuse is just going to continue. The problem is that we often will doubt ourselves because that's what the abuser has trained us to do. They caused us to doubt ourselves, to doubt how we assess life and situations. So we start to doubt and wonder if we're just overreacting, or maybe we're just being too sensitive. And those are things that they'll tell us too when we try to set boundaries. Oh, you're overreacting. You're just being too sensitive. We need to not internalize that, because there's obviously have a lack of respect for us and our health, and they don't care about us. If they did, they would accept our boundaries. People that love us will always respect our boundaries. And if they do cross them, they will apologize. And not just so they can do it again later. Boundaries don't have to be forceful. They can be quiet and steadfast. Like refusing to engage in a petty argument with the abuser. Just because we set boundaries doesn't mean that we're not forgiving them. It doesn't mean that we're holding on to resentment. Boundaries have nothing to do with whether or not we forgive them. It has nothing to do with resentment. It just, like I said, it deals with the quality of the interaction we have with others. And I know that this feels paralyzing because I feel paralyzed a lot when I'm trying to set boundaries, because boundaries are hard for me. I was never allowed to have them. I was never allowed that. And so now trying to set them as an adult is really hard. It can be intimidating, and sometimes denial is easier. Sometimes we want to just deny that we know anything. We just want to run back and be like, nope, it's not happening. And I get that because I've done it before myself. You may even be tempted to stop trying to recover. You may just want to go back and put your head in the sand. And that's okay too. That's a part of the healing process. Sometimes it takes us many attempts to leave an abuser. I've had that happen where I just kept going back to the same person knowing that they were bad for me, but I wasn't able to get to that point where I felt like setting boundaries was acceptable. Okay, sorry. Got startled. But yeah, I didn't feel like I could set boundaries because it felt paralyzing, and I just really wanted to believe that they could change. But the problem is that they don't want to change, and if someone doesn't want to change, they're not going to. It just took me it takes people sometimes a while to realize that. Sometimes it takes them a minute to be able to accept that. Okay, so when it comes to detached contact, this is where you kind of limit your time with them, but the interaction's tone changes. It's all a matter of your emotional state. You need to be able to embrace recovery. And sometimes this is just taking baby steps. Like maybe when they call you, you don't answer immediately. You take 30 minutes or so to calm the anxiety that comes with them calling you. And then you call them back. Or maybe if they've called you again at that point, you can answer it in a calmer state of mind. Sometimes that means that you don't talk to them about personal things. You keep it surface level, small talk. Or you need to do whatever it takes to gain confidence and allow yourself the time that you need to detox. Gotta do what works for you. And there's been situations in my life where I've chosen to just have limited contact with this person, and then there's times where I've chosen no contact. The best examples I can think of are probably the most recent ones. Yeah. We'll start with my mom and versus my sister. Both of them have their own level of psychological abusive behaviors. With my mom, I've chosen limited contact because she's not. Now that I'm as an adult, her toxicity level has. That's it off the fire alarm. Sounds like her toxicity level has dropped. And she's she's still toxic, but not to the same extent that she used to be, so to speak. So I can deal with her in short bursts. We're okay. Kind of like my dad. Anyway, but my sister I cut contact with because she's toxic all the time. No matter what, she's constantly spewing lies. She's constantly trying to manipulate you. She's constantly threatening you. She's constantly trying to wreak havoc and cause drama, and I just can't deal with that. She once sent me a paragraph, like a super long book message about how some guy looked at her wrong in another state, and so because he looked at her wrong and she got stopped from beating him, apparently, and she was still pissed at him, she was going to make up, she sent like this huge text, and in it she told me, I'm going to call DHS on you and tell them that this blah 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 blah, blah happened, and I don't care that it did. I'm going to tell them that so your kids get taken because I'm pissed off at him, and it's not fair that you have your kids and I don't. And that's when I decided that no contact was best, because obviously she's crazy. Another example would be my most recent exes. I have a ex who was mildly psychologically abusive, and so we have limited contact because our relationship is generally okay as long as there's little contact. Then I have the boys' fathers. One, every time that his name comes up, every time he calls me, every time there's even a thought I might see him, my anxiety spikes through the roof. I just can't function. I get really scared, I get really anxious, and I shouldn't have to feel that way. So I chose no contact. The other one, I initially had chosen to do minimal contact with because he was trying. But at some point he became very belligerent, very violent, and started threatening my life. So no contact it was. But again, you gotta do what works for you. What works best for you what works best for me may not work best for you, and vice versa. So what you need to ask yourself is, what has worked in the past and what hasn't? At what point does the contact make you feel anxious? Who are safe people in your life? Who are the abusers? What would make you feel like their contact was successful, and what about the contact might upset you? Sometimes there's not a choice. Sometimes, like I said, if you're having joint custody or in a marriage, no contact may not be a choice. But if it is a choice and that's what you want to do, more power to you. Detached contact's best for you. That's also okay. But again, boundaries are just about the quality of your relationships, and sometimes toxic people will try to sabotage those. So sometimes you really need to think about that when making this decision, because how we think about ourselves is how we're going to feel, and they will do everything they can to distort our thinking and make us think that everything is our fault. And so we really need to be wary of that and not just accept the blame because they try to place it there. You need to remember to try to stay calm, because the calmer that we stay, the more the focus is going to be on them. Because see, what they'll do is they'll say something outlandish or crazy, or they'll try to do something to provoke us. So that, and that moment, all tension's on them. But then, because that typically triggers us and we get all angry and we're like, rah, back, the spotlight shifts onto us, and suddenly now we're the bad guy. It's our fault. But if we stay calm and firm, it stays on them. And they can't pull their shit on us, and everyone can see what's happening, and you can see what's happening. They will try to reconfigure history even. They'll change what has happened. They'll tell you the story, but they'll tell it completely changed in a light that benefits them. And that can send us into a downward negative spiral emotionally, and we shouldn't allow that. So again, calm and firm. And they may rage at us about that, because if we're calm and firmly telling them what really happened, which you should only have to do once or twice, be like, I understand, but here's what happened. And we just stay calm and we stay firm. There's nothing they can do. And if they rage at us about it and get angry and violent or whatever, no contact may be actually the best option for you, because that's a very dangerous situation. But again, I'm not going to tell you what to do. That is for you to decide. Sometimes they'll switch between being pleasant and being toxic, which can lead us to believe that they've changed. But what we need to remember is that even though they're having a good day or they're acting nice today, doesn't mean the bad days won't return. The bad days will always return, because again, they don't want help. They don't want to change. And if they don't want to change, they are not going. So we have to remain firm on our boundaries. And that means that we must follow through. We just need to accept them as they are. They're not going to be who we want them to be. They're not going to be who we thought they were. They're going to be them, always and forever. And they must want, like I said, they must want the change. And they don't, because the way they're living works for them. And I know it's hard, which is why we want to deny it and go back to them and bury our heads in the sand, because accepting the truth of who they are is hard, because there's someone we love. There's someone we look up to. There's someone we care about. But they're not going to change, and we need to just accept that. Detached contact isn't the easy road. Now, no contact gives us more distance, but I wouldn't necessarily call it easy either. It's like, I don't know. No contact is like, you give up an addiction permanently and you never touch it again. But detached contact is more like some type of disorder. Like, I had an eating disorder. I was anorexic for a while, and I still fight those thoughts, but I fight those thoughts pretty much every time I try to eat. So detached contact is kind of like that. You still have to deal with it. Whereas going cold turkey off of an addiction, you don't. Oh, no, he fell again. No contact can be a good option. It basically means that you're definitely moving forward and away from the abuse. Because you realize that the toxic person is providing your life no value. And you don't want to be a pawn anymore. You don't want to be treated like a puppet. And you'll be tempted to go back. You'll be tempted to talk to them again. Something will happen. You'll be like, oh, I should tell them. Or they'll try to come back into your life. Either through promises of change. And, oh, I promise this and that. Or they may try to stir up drama in your life to get themselves back in there so they can maintain their control over you. But we need to keep in mind that they don't really change. And they just acquire new targets, and time may not heal all wounds, but it does soften them. Sometimes we need a new life. If it was a friend, maybe we need a new friend group. If it's a partner, we need a new partner. Maybe we need a new job. Maybe we need a new church location. Maybe we just need to move to a whole new town. Sometimes making a new life for yourself is the best option to get away from them. It all depends upon how much damage was done to your life, because they will systematically try to destroy every area of your life. Remember, this healing process is a process. So be patient and graceful with yourself. You will grieve what was lost, the good parts of the relationship. And I get that, because I grieved the good parts of my relationships. And that's a normal part of the healing process. And we have to grieve the loss of the relationship. We have to grieve the loss of the good parts. Sorry, brain blinked there. And sometimes it's discouraging, but don't get discouraged. Keep moving forward. Keep trying to get better. Keep moving on past the abuse. You deserve better. We all do. And if you need to have support, find a therapist, someone that you can talk to, even just for a few sessions. Or again, find a support group online. And if you would like, again, like I offered in my previous video, if you would like to join my Facebook group for support, just leave a comment down below and I'll give you that link. It should be good for 48 hours. And just let me know, okay? Alright guys, remember I love you and I'm rooting for you. So go out and spread the love, because love always wins. Say bye, Shotgun. Thanks for having this talk with us today.